Here's the next section of C programming, control flow. In real-time life, we come across situations when we need to make some decisions, and based on these decisions, we decide what to do next. This is what we call as decision making. In this lesson, we would be learning various types of decision making statements in C. There are mainly two types, if-else and switch statement. In this lesson, we would be learning if-else statements. In programming, a situation arises where we need to make some decisions, and based on these decisions, we will execute the next block of code. For example, if X condition occurs, then execute Y, or else execute Z. There can also be multiple conditions, like if X condition occurs, then execute P, else if condition Y occurs, execute Q, or else execute R. Decision-making statements in programming language decides the direction of flow of program execution based upon the conditions. The decision-making statements available in C programming are if statement, if-else statement, nested if statement, if-else if statement, switch statement, and some jump statements. In this lesson, we would be discussing the first four types. So let us start with if statements. If statement is considered as the most simple decision-making statement. It is used to decide whether a certain statement or block of statements will be executed or not. That is, if a certain condition is true, then the block of statement will be executed, otherwise it will not. Let's see the syntax. The syntax is very simple. It starts with the keyword if, followed with conditions in round brackets. Here, condition can be evaluated as either true or false. In if statement, if the value comes to be true, the control goes inside this block and these statements are executed. If the condition happens to be false, then these block of statements will not be executed. Directly, the statement after this closing curly braces will be executed. Let us see the flowchart. Here, if the if condition happens to be true, then the if body gets executed. But if the condition happens to be false, then it bypasses the body and directly execute the statement below the if. The second type is if-else statement. The if statement alone tells us that if a condition is true, it will execute a block of statement, and if the condition is false, it won't. But what if we want to do something else if the condition is false? Here comes the else statement. The else statement is used with if statement to execute the block of code when the condition is false. Let's see the syntax. Only the else block gets added, else everything remains same as if statement. The condition is followed by the if keyword. If the condition happens to be true, then the body of if block will be executed. And if this condition happens to be false, the else coming immediately after the if statement will get executed. Let us make it more clear by looking at the flowchart. If the if condition happens to be true, then if statement gets executed and it bypasses the else body. But if the condition happens to be false, it follows the else body. The third type is nested if statement. A nested if is an if statement that is the target of another if statement. Nested if statement means an if statement inside another if statement. Let us get it more clear by looking at the syntax. Here, this is the first if statement within which another if statement is nested. So it is called as nested if statement. Now if this condition 1 happens to be true, the control comes inside this if block and execute these statement. It encounters another if statement with condition 2. Now if this condition 2 happens to be true, the control comes inside this if block and executes the statement. Have a look at this flowchart. Now comes the fourth type, that is if-else if ladder. Here a user can decide among multiple options if user has multiple conditions. In C, the if statements are executed from top to down, that is, the conditions are checked one by one from top to down manner. As soon as one of the condition controlling the if is true, the statements associated with that if is executed, and the rest of the else if ladder is bypassed. If none of the condition is true, then the final else statement will be executed. Let us look at the syntax. If the condition 1 happens to be true, then this block associated with if statement will be executed, and the rest of the else if ladder, that is this condition 2 and else, will be bypassed directly. Now if condition 1 happens to be false, then it will check condition 2. If condition 2 happens to be true, then the corresponding block of the statement will be executed and rest of the else if ladder will be bypassed. But if none of the conditions satisfies, then the final else statement will be executed. Have a look at this flowchart. You will get it more clear. As of we have learned all the types of if statements, let's have a quick recap. Decision-making statement decides the direction of flow of program execution. The types we saw are if statement, which contain if keyword followed by a condition and block of code. Then comes if-else statement, where if condition happens to be true, then if body is executed. If condition happens to be false, then else body is executed. Then comes nested if statement, where one if condition is nested within another if condition. And then the if-else if statement is used when we have multiple conditions at time. Next we have assignment on control flow. We will have one problem statement which we will solve using decision making.